Have you ever met someone who seems to make everything unnecessarily complicated or acts in ways that leave you scratching your head, thinking, what were they thinking? The truth is, intelligence isn't just about IQ or academic success. It's often reflected in how we behave, think, and treat others. Stick around, because today we're diving into 8 subtle but powerful signs of a truly stupid person, and you might just be surprised by what makes the list. Sign 1. Refusal to admit they're wrong. One of the most glaring signs of a lack of intelligence is the refusal to admit when someone is wrong. This might seem like a small flaw at first, but when you dig deeper, you realize how much it impacts a person's ability to grow, learn, and build healthy relationships. Think about it. Admitting you're wrong requires a blend of humility, courage, and self-awareness. For someone with a fragile ego or a closed mind, acknowledging a mistake feels like admitting defeat or exposing a weakness. But here's the irony. Admitting you're wrong is actually a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you're open to learning, evolving, and becoming a better version of yourself. Refusing to do so, on the other hand, is a hallmark of immaturity and ignorance. A person who constantly doubles down on their mistakes, argues in circles, or shifts blame onto others is someone who prioritizes their pride over progress. Take, for example, a manager at work who makes a bad decision. Let's say they introduce a new policy that creates more problems than it solves. Instead of acknowledging their misstep and working with the team to address the issue, they insist the policy isn't the problem, or blame the team for not understanding it properly. What happens? Morale plummets, trust erodes, and the team is left frustrated, all because one person refuses to admit they made a mistake. This behavior isn't just harmful in professional settings, it wreaks havoc on personal relationships too. Imagine being in a relationship where one person can never say, "I'm sorry," or "I was wrong." Over time, resentment builds, and the relationship suffers because of one person's unwillingness to take responsibility. But why does this happen? Often, it stems from deep insecurity. People who refuse to admit they're wrong are terrified of appearing weak, vulnerable, or flawed. They mistakenly believe that being right all the time will earn them respect, when in reality, it only isolates them further. The truth is, intelligence isn't about being right 100% of the time. It's about being willing to adjust your thinking when presented with new evidence or perspectives. Intelligent people see mistakes as opportunities to grow. They ask themselves, "What can I learn from this?" instead of, "How can I prove I wasn't wrong?" So, how do you spot this sign in someone? Pay attention to how they handle criticism or disagreements. Do they listen and reflect, or do they argue and deflect? Are they willing to admit when they don't know something, or do they pretend to have all the answers? Refusing to admit when they're wrong doesn't just reveal a lack of intelligence. It reveals a lack of emotional maturity, and that's a surefire way to hold themselves back in life. Sign 2. Always needing to be the center of attention. Another clear sign of a lack of intelligence is the constant need to be the center of attention. People who exhibit this behavior are often so consumed by their desire for validation and recognition that they fail to consider the needs, feelings, or perspectives of others. It's as if their entire world revolves around ensuring that all eyes are on them, regardless of the situation or the cost to their relationships. Picture this. You're in a group setting, maybe a family dinner, a team meeting, or a casual gathering of friends. There's always that one person who dominates the conversation, interrupts others mid-sentence, or redirects every topic back to themselves. No matter what's being discussed, they somehow find a way to make it about their own achievements, stories, or opinions. Now, why does this behavior signal a lack of intelligence? For starters, it reflects a lack of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. People who constantly seek attention are often oblivious to how their behavior affects those around them. They fail to notice the frustrated sighs, the subtle eye rolls, or the way others start disengaging from the conversation. Their need for attention blinds them to the social cues that more emotionally intelligent people would pick up on. Moreover, this behavior shows a lack of curiosity about the world and other people. Truly intelligent individuals understand that every person has a unique story, perspective, and experience to share. They listen actively, ask thoughtful questions, and engage in meaningful conversations that aren't all about themselves. In contrast, those who crave attention are often too busy thinking about their next story or witty comment to actually listen to what anyone else is saying. Another layer to this issue is insecurity. People who always need to be in the spotlight are often compensating for feelings of inadequacy or low self-worth. They use attention as a way to fill the void, mistakenly believing that external validation will make them feel whole. But here's the catch. The more they chase attention, the less fulfilled they feel, because their self-worth is built on a shaky foundation of other people's opinions. And let's not forget the practical consequences of this behavior. In professional settings, for example, a person who constantly seeks attention may struggle to work collaboratively or give credit where it's due. Instead of celebrating the team's success, they'll find a way to position themselves as the hero of the story, creating tension and resentment among colleagues. In personal relationships, their self-centeredness can leave others feeling unimportant, undervalued, and emotionally drained. So how can you spot this sign? Look for people who consistently interrupt others, dominate conversations, or shift focus back to themselves. Even in situations where it's inappropriate or unnecessary, do they listen and engage, or do they talk over others and steer the spotlight in their direction? Ultimately, the need to always be the center of attention isn't just a sign of insecurity. It's a sign of immaturity and a lack of intellectual depth. Truly intelligent individuals don't need to monopolize the room to feel valued. They understand that attention is fleeting, but genuine connection and meaningful contributions are what truly leave a lasting impact. Sign 3. Refusal to admit mistakes. One of the most telling signs of a lack of intelligence is an inability, or outright refusal, to admit mistakes. This behavior reflects not only a fragile ego, but also a fixed mindset that prevents personal growth and development. People who cannot acknowledge their errors often double down on their wrong decisions, prioritizing pride over progress and learning. Imagine this. You're working on a group project, and one team member makes a decision that clearly leads to a setback. Instead of owning up to it and finding a solution, they deflect the blame onto others, deny their responsibility, or even pretend the mistake never happened. Their primary focus isn't on fixing the issue, but on preserving their image, as if admitting a mistake would irreparably damage their reputation. This refusal to admit faults is a major roadblock to growth. Intelligent individuals view mistakes as opportunities to learn. In fact, some of the greatest innovations in history have come from people embracing their failures and using them as stepping stones toward success. On the other hand, people who refuse to admit their mistakes often display a dangerous combination of arrogance and insecurity. Their arrogance makes them believe they're always right, while their insecurity makes them afraid of appearing weak or incompetent. This behavior also leads to strained relationships. Imagine being in a friendship or partnership with someone who never admits they're wrong. Over time, their refusal to take accountability erodes trust and creates a toxic dynamic where others feel unheard, undervalued, or even manipulated. After all, how can you build a strong connection with someone who is more focused on being right than on being honest or fair. What's more, this habit has practical consequences in professional and personal settings. In a workplace, someone who can't admit mistakes may slow down projects, damage team morale, or even create a culture of blame shifting. In personal life, their inability to own up to errors can lead to repeated conflicts, unresolved issues, and a lack of meaningful growth in their relationships. Refusing to admit mistakes also stifles creativity and problem-solving. When someone is too busy denying their errors, they miss out on the chance to analyze what went wrong and how to do better next time. This fear of failure keeps them stuck in a cycle of mediocrity, never reaching their full potential. You can recognize this trait by observing how someone reacts when they're called out or face criticism. Do they acknowledge their role and take steps to improve, or do they lash out, make excuses, or redirect the blame? Intelligent people welcome constructive feedback and use it as a tool for growth, while those who lack this trait often become defensive, dismissive, or even hostile. In the end, refusing to admit mistakes isn't just about avoiding responsibility, it's about avoiding growth. Truly intelligent individuals have the humility and courage to say, "I was wrong," and then take meaningful steps to make things right. They see failure not as a reflection of their worth, but as a natural and necessary part of the journey toward success. Sign 4. Lack of empathy. A glaring sign of a person's intellectual shallowness is their lack of empathy, the inability to understand or share the feelings of others. Empathy is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence, and without it, individuals struggle to connect with others on a meaningful level. This deficiency often leads to selfish behavior, poor communication, and a complete disregard for how their actions affect those around them. Picture this: you're having a rough day and decide to share your feelings with someone you trust. Instead of listening with care or offering support, they dismiss your concerns with phrases like, "It's not that big of a deal," or worse, they shift the conversation to themselves. This lack of emotional awareness shows that they are more concerned with their own perspective than understanding yours. Empathy allows people to step outside their own experience and see the world through another's eyes. It's a key trait for building strong relationships, fostering teamwork, and resolving conflicts. Those who lack empathy, however, often come across as cold, dismissive, or even cruel. They fail to recognize when someone is struggling or in need of help, and instead, they might label others as too sensitive or overdramatic, without even trying to understand their perspective. In professional environments, this trait can be especially damaging. A manager without empathy, for example, might push their team to the brink of burnout, failing to notice the mental and emotional toll their demands are taking. This not only decreases productivity, but also creates a toxic work environment where employees feel undervalued and unsupported. In personal relationships, a lack of empathy manifests as emotional distance. People who can't put themselves in others' shoes struggle to form deep bonds. They often dismiss their partner's feelings, ignore their emotional needs, or fail to provide comfort during tough times. Over time, this erodes trust and intimacy, leaving the relationship strained or even broken. Interestingly, a lack of empathy isn't always obvious at first. These individuals may seem charming or confident, but their inability to connect emotionally becomes apparent in challenging situations. For instance, when someone faces a loss or a crisis, an empathetic person will offer comfort and understanding. Someone without empathy, however, may respond with indifference, awkwardness, or even frustration at being bothered by someone else's emotions. This trait can also fuel selfishness and egocentric behavior. Without empathy, people are more likely to prioritize their own desires over the well-being of others. They may manipulate, deceive, or exploit people for personal gain, all while being blind to the harm they're causing. Empathy isn't just about being nice, it's a critical skill for understanding human behavior, solving problems, and navigating the complexities of life. Those who lack it miss out on valuable opportunities to learn from others, build lasting connections, and create meaningful change in the world around them. But here's the thing: empathy isn't entirely innate. It can be cultivated. Intelligent individuals recognize the importance of this skill and actively work to develop it. They practice active listening, observe nonverbal cues, and take time to consider how their actions impact others. People who lack empathy, however, often dismiss the need for this growth, remaining trapped in their own narrow worldview. In short, a lack of empathy isn't just a sign of emotional immaturity. It's a barrier to success, fulfillment, and meaningful relationships. It isolates people from those around them, leaving them disconnected in a world that thrives on connection. Sign 5. Overconfidence without substance. One of the most common signs of a foolish person is an unshakable overconfidence that far outweighs their actual abilities or knowledge. This trait can be deceiving at first because confidence is often associated with competence. However, when someone is overly confident without substance to back it up, it becomes a glaring red flag. Have you ever encountered someone who speaks as if they're an expert on every topic under the sun, but the moment they're challenged or questioned, their arguments crumble? These individuals rarely take the time to truly understand what they're talking about. Instead, they rely on surface-level knowledge or hearsay to project an image of intelligence. This overconfidence can manifest in a variety of ways. For example, a person might claim to be a master in a particular skill, but fail to demonstrate even basic competence when given the opportunity. They may also dismiss others' advice or expertise, believing they already know everything there is to know. Such arrogance prevents them from growing or learning, as they see no need to question themselves or seek improvement. The Dunning-Kruger effect, a psychological phenomenon where people with low ability overestimate their competence, is a perfect explanation for this behavior. These individuals don't know what they don't know, and as a result, they assume their limited understanding is complete. This often leads them to make poor decisions, ignore constructive feedback, and resist any opportunity for self-reflection. Take a workplace scenario, for example. A person with this trait might volunteer to lead a project they have little knowledge about, assuring everyone they have it under control. As the project progresses, their lack of preparation and expertise becomes evident, causing delays, mistakes, and frustration among team members. Yet, instead of admitting their shortcomings, they double down on their overconfidence, blaming external factors or others for their failure. In social settings, overconfidence without substance can make a person unbearable to be around. They might dominate conversations, interrupt others, and insist that their opinions are always correct, even when faced with solid evidence to the contrary. This behavior not only irritates those around them, but also isolates them, as people eventually grow tired of their arrogance. What's even more damaging is how this overconfidence can influence others. In some cases, a person with superficial confidence may convince others to follow their lead, only to guide them into failure due to their lack of knowledge or preparation. This is why it's crucial to differentiate between genuine competence and empty confidence. On the other hand, intelligent individuals recognize the limits of their knowledge. They're not afraid to admit when they don't know something, and they actively seek out opportunities to learn and grow. Their confidence comes from a foundation of experience, preparation, and a willingness to adapt. Overconfidence without substance, however, is a roadblock to self-improvement. Those who exhibit this trait are often stuck in a cycle of denial and defensiveness, refusing to acknowledge their weaknesses or mistakes. This not only limits their personal growth, but also damages their relationships, reputation, and opportunities. Ultimately, true confidence is rooted in humility and self-awareness. It's the ability to balance belief in oneself with the acknowledgement that there's always more to learn. Overconfidence without substance, on the other hand, is a facade, one that eventually crumbles under the weight of reality. Sign 6. Refusing to take responsibility. One of the most telling signs of a foolish person is their inability, or outright refusal, to take responsibility for their actions, choices, and mistakes. Instead of owning up to their errors, they deflect blame onto others, external circumstances, or even bad luck. This behavior is not just frustrating for those around them, it's also a major obstacle to personal growth and meaningful relationships. Imagine this. Someone misses an important deadline at work because they procrastinated. Instead of admitting their lack of time management, they claim the task was unfairly assigned to them, or they blame technical issues that didn't actually exist. This unwillingness to take accountability shows not only a lack of maturity, but also an unwillingness to reflect on their behavior and learn from their mistakes. This trait can also show up in personal relationships. For example, a person who refuses to take responsibility may consistently argue with their partner, but never acknowledge their role in the conflict. Instead, they frame themselves as the victim, insisting that the other person is always at fault. Over time, this leads to resentment and erodes trust, as no one wants to feel like they're in a one-sided relationship where accountability is avoided. The refusal to take responsibility often stems from insecurity and fear. Admitting a mistake or flaw requires vulnerability, a willingness to confront one's imperfections and accept that no one is perfect. For some people, this vulnerability feels too threatening, so they build a wall of excuses and justifications to protect their ego. Another layer to this behavior is the tendency to justify their mistakes by saying things like, "That's just who I am," or "I was only trying to help." Over time, this becomes a pattern, where mistakes are brushed off and lessons are never learned. This refusal to accept responsibility has serious consequences. It damages trust in professional settings, alienates loved ones, and creates a self-perpetuating cycle of failure. People who constantly avoid accountability are unlikely to improve their skills, fix their habits, or achieve their goals. In the long run, taking responsibility is not just a sign of intelligence, it's a sign of strength. It shows that you value growth over ego, and that you're willing to face uncomfortable truths to become a better version of yourself. Sign 7. Always needing to be right. A clear indicator of a foolish person is their relentless need to always be right, no matter the context or the cost. For them, every conversation feels like a competition, and every disagreement is a battlefield. They view admitting they're wrong as a sign of weakness rather than an opportunity to grow, and this mindset prevents them from truly listening, learning, and evolving. Picture this scenario. You're discussing a topic with someone, and even when presented with clear evidence that their point is incorrect, they double down on their stance. Instead of admitting their mistake, they'll twist facts, cherry-pick data, or resort to personal attacks to defend their argument. The conversation stops being about finding the truth and becomes solely about preserving their pride. This behavior often stems from insecurity. People who always need to be right fear that admitting they're wrong will make them look foolish or inadequate. Ironically, this unwillingness to acknowledge their mistakes does the opposite. It reveals their lack of confidence and maturity. Intelligent individuals, on the other hand, understand that no one can be right all the time, and that it's okay to admit when they're mistaken. The need to always be right not only stunts personal growth, but also damages relationships. It creates unnecessary tension, as others may feel dismissed, invalidated, or disrespected. Over time, this can lead to resentment, as people grow tired of dealing with someone who refuses to consider alternative perspectives or admit fault. In group settings, this behavior can be especially toxic. A person who always needs to be right might dominate discussions, dismiss valuable input from others, and make decisions based solely on their own opinions. This can lead to poor outcomes, as the collective wisdom of the group is overshadowed by one person's ego. Another layer to this trait is the inability to distinguish between opinions and facts. People with this mindset often present their personal beliefs as universal truths, refusing to entertain the idea that there might be other valid perspectives. For example, they might insist that their way of solving a problem is the only correct approach, ignoring alternative solutions that could be more effective. The truth is, admitting when you're wrong or acknowledging that someone else has a valid point is not a weakness. It's a strength. It shows humility, emotional intelligence, and a willingness to grow. People respect those who can admit their mistakes and learn from them far more than those who stubbornly cling to their pride. If you ever find yourself in a conversation where someone constantly insists they're right, ask yourself, is it worth engaging further? Often, the best course of action is to let them have the last word and move on, focusing your energy on more productive and meaningful interactions. In the grand scheme of things, the ability to say, "I was wrong," or "you have a good point," is far more valuable than winning an argument. It fosters growth, builds trust, and opens the door to deeper understanding. So, the next time you find yourself in a disagreement, remember, the goal isn't to win, it's to learn. Sign 8. Blaming others for their problems. One of the most telling signs of a foolish person is their constant tendency to shift blame onto others for their mistakes, failures, or misfortunes. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they point fingers, finding excuses in external circumstances or the behavior of those around them. Imagine someone who loses their job and immediately blames their boss for being unfair, or their coworkers for sabotaging them, rather than reflecting on their own performance or behavior. Or perhaps they fail an exam and claim the teacher made the questions too hard, instead of admitting they didn't study enough. While external factors can sometimes play a role, consistently refusing to acknowledge personal accountability is a hallmark of immaturity and short-sightedness. This behavior often stems from a fragile ego. Accepting responsibility for mistakes requires a level of humility and self-awareness that foolish people lack. They fear that admitting fault will make them appear weak or incompetent, so they shield themselves by directing the blame outward. However, in doing so, they miss a critical opportunity to learn and grow from their experiences. Blaming others can also have a toxic effect on relationships. No one likes to be unfairly accused or made a scapegoat for someone else's problems. Over time, this behavior can erode trust, create conflict, and drive people away. Friends, family, or colleagues may eventually distance themselves from someone who refuses to own up to their mistakes. Furthermore, this mindset leads to stagnation. By always shifting blame, foolish individuals never confront their shortcomings or strive for improvement. They remain stuck in the same patterns, making the same mistakes, and wondering why their circumstances never change. In contrast, wise individuals understand the power of taking responsibility. They see mistakes as valuable lessons and failures as stepping stones to success. They reflect on what went wrong, consider what they could have done differently, and use those insights to grow stronger and wiser. When you hear someone say things like, "I'm late because traffic was bad," instead of, "I should have left earlier," or "The team didn't finish on time because no one helped me," instead of, "I could have communicated better," it's a red flag. These statements reveal an unwillingness to look inward and acknowledge personal responsibility. Taking accountability is not about self-blame or being overly critical of oneself. It's about recognizing your role in a situation, learning from it, and making a conscious effort to do better next time. It's a sign of strength, not weakness, and it earns the respect and trust of those around you. So, the next time you find yourself facing a setback, pause and ask, what could I have done differently? Shifting from a mindset of blame to one of accountability can transform your life, opening the door to growth, resilience, and meaningful relationships. And there you have it, 8 clear signs of a foolish person. The truth is, we all have moments of ignorance, pride, or poor judgment. But the real difference between the wise and the foolish isn't about never making mistakes. It's about recognizing them, learning from them, and striving to be better. The good news? Every single one of these traits can be changed with self-awareness and effort. The moment you start taking responsibility, valuing knowledge, and surrounding yourself with people who push you to grow, you begin transforming into the best version of yourself. So, take a step back and reflect. Do any of these signs resonate with you? If they do, don't be discouraged. See it as an opportunity. Growth begins the moment we acknowledge our flaws and commit to improving them.